General Hospital spoilers for the next 2 weeks, from June 2nd to June 13th, reveal that Sasha and Willow are about to enter a new phase of tension in their already fragile relationship, which is laden with layers of pain. What seemed to be buried in silence, the secret physical relationship between Sasha and Michael, now resurfaces like a haunting ghost, threatening to pull all three into an inescapable spiral. With newly revealed evidence of Sasha's affair with Michael while he was still legally married to Willow, the atmosphere between the two women becomes suffocating, as though just a glance or a word could ignite the remnants of compassion that still exist. Willow, who once believed that all the pain she had endured could be healed with love and forgiveness, now faces one of the harshest truths of her life, that the woman she had once sympathized with, the one she had stood up to protect against gossip, is the one who quietly shattered her last semblance of happiness. It's not just anger or betrayal that Willow is experiencing, but a growing mental obsession as she begins to question everything. Is Michael's love for her real? Did Sasha's loyalty ever exist? Or was it all just a series of carefully crafted masks designed to keep her from realizing that she was being pushed further away from her own life? She once thought the pain of the past, losing a child, breaking up with Michael, being betrayed by family, had taught her how to rise and move forward. But nothing could prepare her for this cruel moment, when a brutal truth not only stripped her of her dignity but also dragged her fragile grip on reality away. Sasha, for her part, is not indifferent to the consequences she is now facing. What began as a moment of weakness, a fleeting escape from loneliness and the complexities of life, has now become an irredeemable sin. She knows well that, no matter how many justifications she may have in her heart, her affair with Michael, the man tied to Willow's painful past, is a betrayal that crosses all moral boundaries. And now, with this secret brought to light just as Willow is at her most vulnerable, Sasha can't help but feel she is becoming the focal point of one of the most twisted obsessions Port Charles has ever witnessed. No longer are there soft words or shared empathy. The relationship between Sasha and Willow is now clouded by suspicion, jealousy, and a simmering anger ready to erupt at any moment. Willow may no longer need the courts to regain custody of her children, for her own anger is the true trial, where every piece of evidence and every mistake will be judged not by law, but by emotion. No matter how much Sasha may regret her actions, she cannot undo the fact that she played a role in driving Willow away from her family, from Michael's heart, and possibly from the lives of the children she once considered her own. Tensions rise with each passing day as those around them, from Carly, Nina, to Rick Lansing, begin to intervene, offering advice, criticism, and even schemes to use this truth as a tool in the power struggle. But amidst all the noise, only two people truly feel the weight of what is happening. Sasha and Willow, two women standing at opposite ends, both hurt by the same man, both suffering from a broken family, and both tormented by something that should never have occurred. From this point forward, Port Charles will no longer witness these two women standing by each other through hardship, but instead, it will see one of the most vicious and brutal confrontations, one not just over a man, but over betrayed values and shattered honor. In the surge of rage and disappointment, Willow may not stop at just confronting Sasha, but could actively retaliate by exposing other secrets Sasha is trying to keep hidden, from her connection to Nina to legal schemes that could completely shift the custody battle. And if that happens, if Willow's obsession crosses the line of reason, what was once friendship, empathy, and forgiveness will be replaced entirely by a cold war, hatred, and more ruthless moves than anyone could imagine. Jacinda is eventually found by Portia and Curtis after a series of covert efforts to trace her in the shadows, a journey that seemed endless but opens a new chapter full of crises and danger for Port Charles. Her appearance is not just about bringing back a witness to fill the gaps in the chain of events concerning Drew, but also a catalyst that ignites a whole series of terrifying truths concealed beneath a veneer of hypocrisy and noble claims. When Portia and Curtis confront Jacinda, they not only uncover the truth, but inadvertently touch a bomb named Nina Reeves, the woman still silently scheming in the shadows even though she has lost everything on the surface. Jacinda is the one who holds the key to the true nature of the relationship between Nina and Drew, a truth that is not only evidence of betrayal but also the starting point for a series of serious crimes. She was once hired to cover up the traces, witnessed Drew's visits to Nina's secret residence, and accidentally overheard conversations about falsifying test results, identity fraud, and manipulating custody rights to gain an advantage in court. Jacinda's presence is like a death knell, signaling to Nina that her game is over. But in Nina Reeves' world, no ending comes without destruction. At the moment Jacinda is brought to light, a series of shifts in the power dynamics in Port Charles begin to unfold dramatically. No longer are there vague suspicions, no longer are there whispers behind closed doors. Now there are concrete pieces of evidence, testimonies, and events that could not only make Nina lose everything but also face criminal prosecution. And with Drew, who was previously seen as a neutral figure, the truth about his affair with Nina, while playing a pivotal role in the custody battle with Michael and Willow, transforms him from an empathizer to an accomplice, even a mastermind in a systematic web of lies. The relationship between Nina and Drew is no longer just a moment of weakness or mutual comfort, it is an intentional betrayal, crafted with meticulous planning to seize power in both emotional and legal spheres. They exchanged more than feelings, they shared information, secrets, and cooperated in dark plans now being exposed piece by piece. Jacinda is not the only witness, but she is the decisive piece that makes the entire picture clear, with no room left to hide. The eruption of these truths makes Port Charles seem like it's entering a collective nightmare. Willow, who is fighting to regain her children, now faces not only Michael's betrayal and Sasha's broken trust, but also has to witness Drew, the man she once considered a pillar, now as a collaborator with Nina in a deceitful relationship. She is completely stripped of any sense of safety, pushed into isolation in a city where trust has been shattered. This leaves Willow, already on the brink of collapse after the court trial, becoming cold, hardened, and possibly the one to take direct revenge on both Nina and Drew. Either through legal means or by exposing all the secrets to the media, something she never thought she'd do. Portia and Curtis, who happen to be witnesses to this collapse, are also caught up in the dangerous vortex. Their finding of Jacinda means they are the next targets if Nina decides to erase all traces. But this time, the truth has gone beyond control. The tension building within Nina is turning into panic, leading to unpredictable behavior. She was once a smart woman capable of manipulating emotions and turning situations around with a few tears, but now, facing the risk of losing everything, Nina has become more dangerous than ever. In a desperate effort, she may try to eliminate Jacinda, threaten Portia, or even pull Drew back by exposing secrets he dare not reveal. The madness in the story between Nina and Drew is spreading like an epidemic, haunting not only the people involved but also everyone else who can't ignore it. Michael, Carly, Sonny, even Jason, all of them begin to piece the events together, realizing that the upheavals in their lives are not just due to circumstances, but the result of a series of intentional actions by those they once loved and trusted. And from here, a silent but brutal purge will begin, where no one will be protected. And the obsession won't just stem from the crimes committed but from the realization that the person beside you was part of it. Port Charles is entering a new dark era, where masks will fall one by one, where every action will be dissected to its roots, and where the guilty will have nowhere left to hide. And it all begins with a seemingly insignificant name, Jacinda. Christina is at the center of an unprecedented emotional and moral crisis, a slow-burning yet relentless upheaval that threatens to shatter every foundation she once believed in. When Rick, her uncle, with whom she once shared moments of closeness, becomes a direct threat to the peace of her family, Christina is forced to confront the truth that her world is shifting in a completely foreign, unstable, and dangerous direction. Rick is no longer a peripheral figure in the story. He is now actively manipulating, pulling strings, and coercing the vulnerable to submit under the guise of legal authority and familial duty. This time, Rick is targeting Alexis, Christina's mother, who is in a fragile state both psychologically and legally, after a series of mistakes and unresolved secrets. Christina, who has always been a blend of emotion and reason, cannot ignore the sight of her mother being pushed to the depths of despair. Rick, with his insinuations and sweet yet treacherous offers, uses Christina's love for her mother as leverage to force her into action according to his will. Christina is not only placed in a position where she must choose between family loyalty and moral integrity, but she also faces the risk of losing faith in herself, the very thing she has worked so hard to preserve during her years of searching for identity and purpose. Every word from Rick feels like an invisible sentence, choking every effort Christina is making to protect her mother, protect herself, and most importantly, protect what is right. There is no one else who can help her at this point except Michael, the brother Christina has always trusted, even though they have often disagreed in how they live their lives. And so, she places all her final hope in a plea, not just a request for help, but a raw, unspoken cry of helplessness, fear, and deep despair. That plea is not simply a demand for assistance. It is a silent scream within the cold walls of indifference and the widening distance of family. If Michael understands the true weight of those words, he will realize that his sister is being pushed to the brink, a place where one misstep could mean she will never return. But the most terrifying part is not just Christina's helplessness, but Rick's very nature, someone who knows how to push people to their limits with cold, brutal intelligence and the ability to read emotions with chilling precision. He knows how deeply Christina loves Alexis. He knows she feels responsible for carrying the weight of her mother's mistakes. And so, Rick has created a situation where Christina is both a victim and a tool, to keep Alexis under control, to threaten anyone who dares oppose him in the upcoming legal battle, and to conceal a chain of other plots Christina has yet to uncover. Among these, there may even be evidence of the shady relationship between Nina and Drew, secrets Rick is ready to use as bargaining chips, even if the price is the collapse of an entire family. Christina is no fool. She knows her plea to Michael might be rejected, doubted, or worse, seen as weakness and a lack of control. But she has no other choice. Rick's threats are no longer hypothetical. They are present every day, slowly eroding her ability to resist. That maddening threat, where Rick could ruin Alexis's reputation with just a single word, where her family's existence could be tarnished by intricate legal schemes, is becoming a terrifying reality. And Christina, while trying to hold on to her courage, feels herself being consumed by a darkness she can no longer control. A greater shock may still lie ahead, if Michael refuses to help, if Alexis completely falls apart, if Rick plays his final cards. And if all those things happen at once, Christina could be the first to explode. A person who once endured, who bent and sacrificed for her family, but also someone with clear limits. When those limits are breached, she will no longer be the gentle, soft-hearted girl, but a spirit tortured, ready to destroy everything in her path to reclaim a semblance of justice. No matter the cost. And in a city like Port Charles, where every secret has its price, the revenge of a Christina pushed to her breaking point could be the seismic event that shakes the entire power structure. Port Charles stands on the edge of a series of explosive events, and at the center of it all, is a plea that no one dares to ignore. Because it is not just the sound of pain. It is the first warning of a dangerous awakening. Brooke Lynn, Dante, and Tracy are slowly tightening their grip on Gio, a young man with a broken past, unanswered questions, and an identity still in the process of being formed amidst widespread devastation. In the eyes of these three adults, their control takes the form of love, responsibility, and doing what is right, but in Joe's eyes, it is all just a newly built prison constructed with sweet words and forced hugs. Brooke Lynn wants to protect her son at any cost. Dante is trying to hold on to the father role he has just rediscovered, and Tracy, with her experience and sharpness, will not allow any deviation to shatter the already fractured family structure. But while they increase their control, Gio loses what little he had left, the right to choose, his inner voice, and most importantly, his sense of self. None of them realize that the more they try to protect Gio by making decisions for him, the further they push him away. Gio does not need salvation framed within moral standards, nor a pre-written life path from people he has only just begun to know. What Gio needs, and what no one is willing to admit, is the space to fail, to rebel, to be wrong without being judged. And when control increases from every side, when every action is monitored, it is then that Gio begins to break. He becomes silent, withdrawing, carrying with him an undercurrent of rage, a feeling that is difficult to name, but could explode at any moment into an absolute rejection of everything that is called family. The story of mending the emotional ties between Gio and these three adults, therefore, does not unfold as a sweet journey with a happy ending. On the contrary, it is a series of challenging, painful, and unstable days, when each side tries to love according to their understanding without truly listening to the other. Brooke Lynn is heartbroken as she watches her son refuse to embrace her. Dante is confused when he realizes that being a father is not just showing up and compensating, but learning to be patient with a wounded soul. And Tracy, who once thought that experience and sharp reasoning could solve everything, now stands helpless before a young man sinking into an identity crisis, untouchable by anyone. It is from this tug-of-war that the shocks begin to emerge. Gio suddenly leaves in the middle of the night without a word, or loses his temper uncontrollably in front of his family. The old cracks between Brooke Lynn and Dante resurface as they blame each other for letting Gio slip into his current state of instability. Tracy, the one who once held the balance, also begins to lose faith in her ability to control the situation. Every small act of Gio, from changing his style of dress, playing music alone, to avoiding family gatherings, becomes a warning sign of a larger psychological storm brewing inside. And when that patience reaches its limit, when Gio can no longer suppress what's inside him, a significant change will truly explode. He will not just question his mother's love, his father's honesty, or his grandmother's respect, but he will question the very nature of attachment itself. He will ask, do they love him because he is Gio, a distinct person, or just because he carries the Quatermain and Corinthos blood? That question, seemingly simple, will blow apart all the protective layers Brooke Lynn, Dante, and Tracy have painstakingly built. From here, no one will be able to pretend everything will be fine if they continue to love instinctively. They will have to relearn how to enter Joe's world, slowly, respectfully, and without judgment. And from here, Port Charles will witness a new chapter of family, where control is no longer the answer, and the key to healing lies in letting go at the right time. Because sometimes, the best thing we can do for the ones we love is to stop leading them, and instead choose to walk alongside them, even when they choose a different path than we expect. Cody and Molly are entering a new phase in their relationship, where the boundaries between curiosity, compatibility, and danger are gradually becoming blurred. Amid the chaos in Port Charles, where traditional relationships no longer maintain their natural order, they find each other in the silence, in the spaces no one else can fill. Cody, a rebellious soul who has always lived on the fringes of convention. And Molly, who once lived by reason and the law, now slowly let go of her protective shell of principles and allow herself to be swept up in emotions she dares not name. Their relationship is gradually evolving into a strange, mutual control. Neither owns the other, but both have a deep, unseen influence on the mind of the other. This is no longer a passing, light-hearted feeling. A new adjustment is taking place, unspoken yet visible in every glance, in every seemingly accidental touch. They don't discuss the future, don't label their relationship. But both Cody and Molly know that what they're caught up in is moving farther than either of them intended. And because it has no name, no clear way out, this connection has become all the more obsessive. Molly, once steadfast in every legal and moral decision, now finds herself questioning her own sense of self whenever she's with Cody. She no longer knows whether she's being liberated from her old life or dragged into a labyrinth with no way out. Cody feels the same. He knows he has an invisible power over Molly. But at the same time, he's controlled by her in ways he doesn't understand. Their conversations, the quiet nights, the half-smiles she gives him become what keeps him awake, not because of desire, but because of a vague fear that if he loses Molly, he will fall back into the undefined state that haunted him for so many years. They don't control each other with words or actions, but with a growing, unnamed spiritual dependency. When their intimacy is accidentally discovered, whether it's a lingering touch or an unhidden gaze, whispers begin to spread. The gossip, The scrutinizing glances from Molly's family, her colleagues at the court, from those who once saw her as the epitome of propriety, turn into sharp needles pointed in their direction. Cody, who is used to living under the skeptical gaze of others, doesn't care much, but for Molly, it's different. She begins to feel out of control, not with Cody, but with the image and values she had worked so hard to build. This is when the real shock happens. Instead of pulling away, like she had done with other unsafe relationships, she chooses to stay. She admits to herself that what's happening with Cody is not an accident, it's a part of her awakening. But at the same time, that decision brings a series of consequences. Questioning her competence at work, being doubted by her family, and even being asked to step away from certain important cases due to conflicts of interest. The more she tries to protect her emotions, the more she is pushed away from the familiar world and deeper into Cody's orbit, a world where nothing is certain except the irresistible attraction they share. Their story, then, becomes not only an unspoken romance but also a manifestation of one of the new obsessions creeping through Port Charles. Those who thought they understood Molly, who once saw her as the symbol of reason and ethics, can no longer fathom why she's disregarding everything to be with someone like Cody. Even Molly herself isn't sure. All she knows is that whenever she's with Cody, she feels real, no role to play, no mask, nothing to prove. And it is this raw authenticity that terrifies her most. Because she knows, if she lets that feeling go too far, she might lose everything, her career, her reputation, even herself. By now, the relationship between Cody and Molly has far surpassed any limits a normal relationship could have. It's a smoldering obsession, an emotional bomb waiting to explode. No one knows where it will end, whether it will be a passionate eruption of release or a chain of collapses leading to personal and public disaster. But one thing is undeniable. They've both changed, and this relationship, whether right or wrong, has touched a deeper part of their souls that no one had reached before. And from this moment on, Port Charles will no longer be a safe haven for what is called propriety. Rick is quietly but methodically making a new adjustment, and this time his target is none other than Liz. The woman he was once entangled with in a tumultuous past, and now, once again, she finds herself at the center of his cold, calculating schemes. No longer the impulsive actions or uncontrollable fits of rage he once had, Rick is now a calm man, able to hide a razor-sharp edge beneath a polite facade. And knows exactly when to step into the lives of others as if it were a fate already written. Liz, after a series of personal upheavals with lucky and unresolved wounds, is becoming the perfect target for Rick's plan to restructure a covert power dynamic, a relationship built not on love, but on emotional and mental entanglements under control. Lucky, the man who was once Liz's anchor, is now the cause of her instability once again when his reckless actions, destroying Christina's car, are unexpectedly discovered, leading to a series of legal troubles and public scrutiny. Liz doesn't know who to side with when Christina, a young woman already carrying her own wounds, becomes the victim of Lucky's angry impulsiveness, and Rick is the one who appears at the perfect moment to help her sort everything out, offering legal advice and a false sense of security while she's struggling in the midst of a dark memory. Rick doesn't attack head-on, he steps back every time Liz doubts, then moves 2 steps forward every time she weakens, gradually building his position in her life quietly but surely. The adjustment Rick is making goes beyond just his relationship with Liz, it extends into a larger framework, where he systematically removes the destabilizing elements around her. First, he erodes Lucky's credibility, then makes Christina feel abandoned, and slowly isolates Liz from her close ones by positioning himself as the only one who understands and protects her. Liz begins to doubt her own reasoning, starts to feel that Rick's presence is the only thing keeping her standing when everything else is falling apart. She doesn't realize that Rick's timing, his kindness, and his understanding of her are all proof of a carefully laid plan, a subtle control strategy built from unresolved psychological and emotional cracks. As Liz is pulled deeper into this vortex, Lucky becomes more and more lost. His guilt, his obsession with his mistakes, and his fear of losing everything push him to a heightened state of instability. He tries to approach Liz, to explain himself, to cling to whatever remnants of happiness they once shared. But every word he says is subtly rendered meaningless by Rick. Rick doesn't need to forbid Liz from meeting Lucky, he just plants a small question in her mind, a lingering doubt. Does Lucky really change, or is he just repeating an old cycle of pain? And so Liz steps back, little by little, until the gap between her and Lucky becomes an unbridgeable void that no explanation can fill. In the end, Rick proves that he's not just a part of the past. He wants to rewrite the future, not his own future, but Liz's. A future where she no longer has the power to make decisions for herself. She thinks she's being helped, but in reality, she's being drawn into a world of dependency, where she can only exist through trust placed in the man who hurt her most. And in this context, Liz doesn't even realize she's losing control, not because Rick forces her, but because she's come to believe there is no other world outside the one he's crafting for her. Rick's new adjustment is spreading like an invisible web, trapping not only Liz but everyone else who once tried to protect her. Christina is pushed out by a crisis of trust. Jason begins to feel distant as Liz avoids his calls. Carly is busy confronting Nina. And Sonny is too caught up to realize that one of the biggest dangers for Port Charles is hiding behind a familiar face. Every time Rick enters Liz's house with a warm cup of coffee or a quiet evening greeting, it's another step closer to setting up a control structure that no one but him can see in full. And when everyone finally realizes it, when the truth is exposed, it might already be too late. Because Rick doesn't just want Liz's heart. He wants to redefine his entire role in this city, a central figure, a puppeteer, a controller, not by force, but through a twisted understanding, by turning sympathy into a tool. And by using those who once loved him without knowing they've become pawns in the game of a man obsessed with power, love, and absolute submission.